Sign here for the family trust, Dad said, sliding papers across the table. Just routine updates. We were at my parents' house for Sunday dinner, the smell of Mom's pot roast still lingering in the air. My brother Kyle and his wife had left an hour ago. They always had somewhere else to be, but Nathan and I stayed, helping with dishes like we always did. Dad had seemed anxious all through dinner, kept checking his watch, drumming his fingers on the table. Now I knew why. Updates? I asked, picking up the pen. I thought the trust was all set from when Grandma died. Just some minor changes, Dad said. His smile was too wide. Tax purposes, you know how it is. I'd never actually seen the family trust documents. Dad had always handled everything, said it was easier that way. I was 25 when Grandma passed, too young and grief-stricken to ask questions. Now, at 32, I just assumed everything was properly managed. Nathan reached for the papers. Mind if I take a look? I've been dealing with trusts at the firm. My husband was a contract lawyer, the kind who read every word of our mortgage papers and actually understood Apple's terms of service. It was one of the things I loved about him, his attention to detail that balanced my tendency to trust too easily. Dad's hand twitched like he wanted to pull the papers back. It's really just standard stuff. But Nathan was already reading, his lawyer face on. I watched his expression change from professional interest to confusion, then to something darker. His jaw tightened. A muscle in his cheek twitched. Nathan, I asked. He kept reading, faster now, flipping pages with increasing urgency. Mom had gone very still at the sink, a soapy plate frozen in her hands. This isn't a trust, Nathan said finally, his voice deadly quiet. This is a confession. Then he tore the papers in half. The sound was like a gunshot in a quiet kitchen. Dad's face went white. Mom dropped the plate. It shattered on the floor, but no one moved to clean it up. What are you talking about? I whispered. Nathan spread the torn pages on the table. This document transfers all assets from the Riverside Cemetery Development Fund to your name, Melody. It also absolves your parents of any financial wrongdoing related to said fund. I don't understand. The Riverside Cemetery fire, Nathan said, still staring at my parents. 25 years ago, 17 victims. The cemetery that was supposed to be renovated with community donations, but mysteriously burned down instead. My stomach dropped. I knew about the fire. Everyone in town did. It was our local tragedy, the reason we had that memorial garden downtown. 17 people had died when the old cemetery's maintenance building caught fire during a community volunteer day. The investigation blamed faulty wiring, I said weakly. The investigation was closed due to lack of evidence, Nathan corrected. After $2.3 million in renovation funds disappeared. I looked at my parents. Mom was crying silently, mascara running down her cheeks. Dad seemed to have aged 10 years in 10 seconds. Tell her, Nathan said. Or I will. Dad slumped in his chair. We never meant for anyone to get hurt. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Your father was the cemetery board treasurer, Mom whispered. We were drowning in debt. The medical bills from Kyle's surgeries, the second mortgage, your college fund. So you stole from dead people? My voice came out shrill. We were going to pay it back, Dad said. I had an investment opportunity, a sure thing. We just needed to borrow the money for a few months. But the investment failed, Nathan guessed. Dad nodded miserably. Lost everything. The renovation was supposed to start in 3 weeks. We couldn't explain where the money went. So you burned down the cemetery, I said, numb with horror. Just the maintenance building, Dad insisted. It was supposed to be empty. The volunteer day wasn't supposed to start for another hour. But Emma Chin came early, Nathan said quietly, with her youth group, to set up. Emma Chin. I knew that name. We'd gone to high school together until she died in the fire along with 16 other volunteers. Her parents still laid flowers at the memorial every month. We didn't know they were there, Mom sobbed. We didn't know. You killed 17 people, I said. You killed Emma and her friends and all those people, and then you just, what? Went on with your lives. What else could we do? Dad's voice broke. Coming forward wouldn't bring them back. It would just destroy our family. You were 7, Melody. Kyle was 10. You needed us. We needed parents who weren't murderers. The word hung in the air like poison gas. Murderers. My parents. The people who'd driven me to school and cheered at my graduations and walked me down the aisle at my wedding. Why now? Nathan asked. Why this document today? Dad and Mom exchanged a look. Richard Chen is running for district attorney, Mom said quietly. Emma's father. He's promised to reopen cold cases, starting with the fire. He has new technology, new investigators. And you want me to take the fall, I said, understanding flooding through me like ice water. No. Dad protested. The trust puts the money in your name retroactively, makes it look like Grandma left it to you directly. If they investigate, they'll find the money trail leads to you, but you were 7. You can't be held responsible. But I'd be implicated. It would look like I've been living off blood money my whole life. Better than prison, Mom said quietly. Nathan stood up so fast his chair fell over. You're asking your daughter to become an accessory after the fact to mass murder, to destroy her reputation, her career, her life, to save yourselves. We're asking her to protect this family, Dad shouted. What family? I screamed back. The one built on 17 corpses, the one funded by stolen money meant for the dead. That family? I thought about every comfortable moment of my childhood. The house we shouldn't have been able to afford. The college tuition that appeared despite Dad's moderate salary. The wedding they paid for, the down payment they'd helped with. All of it was blood money. How much? I asked. How much of my life was paid for with their deaths? Dad looked away. The initial investment loss was covered by insurance fraud. But the returns we eventually made, they funded everything after you turned 12. 20 years. 20 years of living on money that existed because 17 people died. Nathan was on his phone. What are you doing? Dad asked, panic in his voice. Calling a colleague who specializes in criminal law, Nathan said. Melody's going to need representation when we go to the police. We? I asked. He looked at me with such fierce love it took my breath away. We, always. You can't. Mom lunged for the phone. Nathan stepped back, holding it out of reach. Watch us, he said. I thought about Emma Chen. We'd been in Girl Scouts together. She'd wanted to be a doctor. She'd been 17 when she died, trying to make our town a better place by beautifying the cemetery where her grandparents were buried. Kyle, I said suddenly. Does Kyle know? The guilty look that passed between my parents was answer enough. You told him but not me. He figured it out in college, Dad admitted. The accounting discrepancies, he's been helping us move money offshore, just in case. My brother, my parents, my entire family except for me, all complicit in mass murder. Why keep me in the dark? I asked. Because you're good, Mom said simply. You've always been our good girl. We knew you'd never understand. Understand. I laughed, harsh and bitter. I understand perfectly. You're all killers who've been planning to frame me if you got caught. Not frame, Dad insisted. Protect. The trust protects you while protecting us. It makes me look guilty of receiving stolen funds. But not murder, Mom said, like that made it better. Never murder. Nathan ended his call. My colleague is on her way. She says not to sign anything, touch anything, or say anything else until she gets here. You're destroying our family, Dad said. You destroyed 17 families, I shot back, and then used their money to buy my silence before I even knew there was something to be silent about. The next hours blurred together. Nathan's colleague arrived, a sharp woman named Patricia who took one look at the torn documents and told my parents they were idiots as well as murderers. The police came next, then the FBI because it turned out some of the cemetery funds had come from federal grants. My parents were arrested in their kitchen, next to the shattered plate no one had cleaned up. They didn't resist. They looked almost relieved, like 25 years of carrying that weight had finally broken them. Kyle was arrested at his office the next morning. The offshore accounts he'd set up made it worse. Showed consciousness of guilt, Patricia explained. He'd known for 7 years and done nothing but help hide the money. The investigation exploded our town apart. The Chen family finally got answers, but no justice. My parents might get 25 to life, but their daughter would still be dead. Other families found closure they'd never thought possible. The town newspaper ran headlines for weeks. I testified at the trial, told them about Sunday dinner, about the trust documents, about Nathan tearing them in half. told them how my whole life had been funded by blood money I never knew existed. "Do you think your parents feel remorse?" the prosecutor asked. "I think they feel sorry they got caught," I said. "They had 25 years to confess. Instead, they tried to make me their escape plan." My parents were convicted on all counts. 17 counts of involuntary manslaughter, plus fraud, conspiracy, and attempted obstruction of justice. Kyle got 10 years as an accessory after the fact. I spent the next year liquidating everything they'd ever given me. The house, the car, jewelry, everything. Nathan stood by me through it all, even when I tried to give away my engagement ring because Dad had helped pay for it. "That ring is from me," he said firmly. "Not them. Don't let their crimes steal our love too." The money went to the victims' families. It wasn't nearly enough. Divided 17 ways and depreciated by time, it was almost insulting. But they took it gracefully, said it helped to know someone in the family had a conscience. Emma Chen's parents invited me for tea one day. I almost didn't go, but Nathan convinced me. "You were 7. Mrs. Chen said, pouring jasmine tea with steady hands. "A child. Their victim too, in a way." "I benefited from her death," I said. "You didn't know," Mr. Chen said firmly. "And when you did know, you did the right thing. That matters." They told me about Emma, how she'd loved to garden, how she'd volunteered at the cemetery because she liked making things beautiful, how she'd been accepted to pre-med at Stanford the week before she died. "She would have been a wonderful doctor," Mrs. Chen said, "but she would have been prouder of you for choosing truth over family." I cried then for Emma and the 16 others, for the families destroyed, for the parents I'd lost not to death but to truth. The Chens held me while I sobbed, 2 people who had every right to hate me offering comfort instead. It's been 3 years now. Nathan and I moved 2 towns over, far enough to escape the daily reminders, but close enough to visit the memorial. We go every month, leaving flowers for 17 people who died because my father couldn't admit to embezzlement. I work at a nonprofit now, helping families of crime victims navigate the legal system. It pays nothing compared to my old job. But every penny is clean. Every night I sleep without wondering whose death funded my dreams. My parents write sometimes. I don't open the letters anymore. The first few were full of justifications, explanations, accusations that I destroyed our family for strangers. As if 17 people were worth less than their comfort. As if family meant covering up mass murder. Kyle's wife divorced him and moved across the country with their kids. She sends me Christmas cards, says she's grateful someone in the family finally told the truth. She's remarrying next spring. A teacher who knows her whole story and loves her anyway. Do you regret it? People sometimes ask. Turning in your own parents? I think about Nathan tearing those papers in half. About 17 families who spent 25 years wondering why. About Emma Chen's parents offering me tea and forgiveness. About sleeping peacefully on sheets that weren't bought with blood. I regret that they made it necessary, I say. I regret that 17 people died. I regret 25 years of lies. But telling the truth? Never. The family trust sits in evidence now, those torn pages taped back together. Proof that my parents loved their comfort more than justice. Proof that they'd have sacrificed my reputation to save themselves. Proof that sometimes family isn't who you're born to, but who stands beside you when you do the right thing. Nathan stood beside me. Patricia fought for me. The Chens forgave me. That's my family now, built on truth instead of lies, justice instead of secrets, love instead of blood money. My parents thought I'd sign those papers without reading them, the same way I'd signed birthday cards and permission slips and Christmas gift tags my whole life. They thought trust meant blind obedience. They thought family meant complicity. They thought wrong. And Nathan knew to read every word. Nathan knew to see the trap beneath the trust. Nathan knew to tear their confession in half and set the truth free, even though it would destroy the people who'd smiled at our wedding and promised to love me forever. That's the difference between real family and blood relatives. Real family protects you from harm, even when the harm comes from people you love. Blood relatives expect you to drown with them and call it loyalty. I chose real family. I chose truth. I chose to honor 17 people who died because my father was too proud to admit he'd stolen. And every month when I lay flowers at that memorial, I think about Emma Chen, 17 forever, wanting to be a doctor, killed while trying to make something beautiful. I can't bring her back, Can't undo what my parents did. Can't escape the knowledge that my education was paid for by her death. But I can tell the truth. I can refuse to sign. I can tear up confessions disguised as trust documents. I can choose justice over family, truth over comfort, right over blood. And I do. Every day I do. Because that's what Emma would have done. That's what any decent person would do. That's what family, real family, actually means.